Hey guys, James Nation here with Technic Nation. Now normally anytime I do a product review, I like to keep it for about a week or two just to make sure I put it through the paces and make sure I understand the product well enough. But today I'm going to do things a little differently because I've got the iPhone X and I want to give you my first impressions. So the iPhone X is a big step for Apple in that they've moved away from the home button that we have all, over the last 10 years, become accustomed to, which has changed, of course, how you use the phone, which we're going to take a look at that later. But it's also the first time that they have moved to an OLED screen. And I have to say, first impressions, I'm really impressed. I was a little concerned with how the notch for the front camera how that would kind of play into the overall look and feel. And it's not that bad. There are certain apps that kind of deal with that better than others. But I have noticed even today, one day after the release, that a lot of apps are now offering updates that are tailored for the iPhone X. So we'll kind of look at some before and after views of those apps to see how people are dealing with it. We'll walk through how you use the phone, and we'll just talk a little bit about the specs in general. So as I mentioned, the iPhone X brings about a lot of change for Apple iPhones, and I thought I would just kind of walk through the high points, basically what I've been able to take away from the phone after using it for one day. First of all, with the loss of the home button, you now have two ways to kind of interact with the phone initially. We still have the side sleep-wake button that we've had in the past that you can utilize. Other option is a tap to wake. Once you're there, you see the white bar, which tells you swipe up to open. So whether you're holding the phone in a portrait or landscape, that white bar will kind of move with you. So you simply tap, slide up, and the Face ID recognizes me and you're in. Now with the Face ID, I do have to say it's been very effective for me. There was one point when I was in a kind of a dark room. It was a slight delayed reaction. It took a few tries, but generally speaking, it's been spot on for me. Now, without the home button, you might be wondering, how do you access your app switcher or multitasking page? So to do that, you do a kind of a half swipe and a hold, and here you are at your app switcher window. So pretty easy to use, nothing complicated. To close the app, you simply swipe up all the way and you're there. Another cool feature is when you're in an app and you want to flip somewhere else, rather than going to the multitasking page, you can actually do kind of a half circle swipe on the bottom corners and you can just flip from app to app. So that one's pretty cool. Now the control bar and notifications. Of course, notifications used to be just a swipe down from the top, and the control center was a swipe up from the bottom. Now the control center is a top right swipe down. Pretty much everything you are accustomed to in the past is there, and notifications are now available on the left. So nothing too complicated with regards to accessing those. Accessing Siri, now of course you still have the voice option. If you would like to say, "Hey Siri," that's still functional. And with the old iPhones, you could do a long press on the home button to bring it up. That's now done through this sleep wake button. You do a long press, and there comes Siri.
Interesting question, James.
Confused Siri on that one. So I mean, that's really kind of the high points of controlling the phone, navigating the phone. And one last point: to power down, it's a long press on the sleep wake button and either volume button, and that pulls up your option to slide to power off, medical ID, or emergency SOS. We're going to go ahead and cancel. So again, you get used to it. It's funny. I picked up my old iPhone 6s earlier this afternoon to check something, and I immediately swiped up. I mean, it's funny how quickly you adapt to the new ways of the world. Now I want to talk about the notch, which doesn't really show up so much on this black screen, but when you go into, say, Instagram, And now some apps have been a little more proactive than others when it comes to updating their apps to kind of better handle that notch. And really for me, it hasn't been an issue. If we look at a couple of other ones, so YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, etc. Most of the apps have been updated. Now some have not. Now the updates are available, but I want to show you kind of before and after. So for instance, ESPN, now this is on their old version. When you pull up the app, you'll notice the black bars top bottom. So now I'm going to update the application and let you see kind of how the revision looks. Alright, so now I've updated the ESPN application, so we're going to go back in and see how it looks. And you can see immediately that the black bars are gone at the top and the bottom. Another app that just recently got updated is Flipboard. I haven't updated yet, so I want to show you before and after there as well. So here's your before. Again, you can see obvious black bars at the top and bottom. So we're going to update the app and kind of see how the after looks with the iPhone 10 correction, if you will. Alright, so the app has been updated, so we go back in, and now you can see that it is a beautiful full screen. Again, it's not pretty small change, it is a small change, but it does look really good, and I'm sure as time goes by, more and more applications will be updated for the iPhone 10. So now we're going to look at YouTube and see how it handles the video playback. I've seen different solutions for like Amazon Video, Netflix, YouTube. YouTube kind of has an interesting take on it. Now you'll see by default you've got the black bars on both the left and the right hand side, but what you can do is a pinch to zoom and it essentially fills that screen for you. Now when you do that, you do lose whatever video was here at the top and the bottom. And let me see if I can pause it to give you kind of a better view of that. So here, when we pinch to zoom, we now cut off a portion of that video. It's pretty small, and to be honest with you, I think it's worth that zoom to fill to get the full screen kind of view on it. And we can also look at how other apps are handling this. Alright, so now we're going to look and see, for instance, how Netflix is handling that. Now, I'm just going to pull up a random show here. Go ahead and play that. Now, Netflix by default will put the bars on both the left and the right hand side. The funny thing is there's no option to pinch to zoom. So again, this is how some apps are handling it a little bit differently than others. Let's scroll ahead so we can see. Here we go. So here you have your bars left and right hand side. There is no pinch to zoom. That's a YouTube specific. Again, it's I wouldn't say it's a negative. I would like to see more applications kind of take that YouTube approach. But again, that's a pretty minimal price to pay for the screen. Now, while we're on the subject of the screen, I should point out that this OLED screen is pretty gorgeous. The resolution on it, 2436 by 1125. That works out to a 19.5:9 aspect ratio, which is, I'm pretty sure, the only phone out there that has that ratio, which is a little quirky, but that's okay. Extremely bright in the daylight. I was out quite often today, and compared to, say, my iPhone 6s, it's night and day difference, and I mean, it truly is sharp. Now with the Face ID, as I mentioned before, it's been very responsive for me. I don't have any complaints. They do say that you have to have your eyes open. So we're going to do a quick test. I've got my eyes closed, just open barely enough to be able to see what I'm doing, but I'm going to swipe up, see what happens, and it looks like it failed. So now I'm going to cancel that. Eyes are open now, and look at that. I mean, that's pretty quick. I don't see how that would be any slower than using the home button. If anything, it's pretty much a guarantee to be faster. Now, I haven't really gone through, you know, the games of putting on hats and taking off my glasses, or putting a fake mustache on to see if it fails, but maybe I'll do that in another video. But generally speaking, the Face ID has been pretty solid for me. Now, going back to the aspect ratio, I mentioned that this has a 19.5 to 9, which is slightly different than what you would see like in a Galaxy S8 or the Google Pixel phone. I'm sure it's such a small difference. You put them side by side, it would probably be even hard to notice. But I think there are some apps that look really good with this, and I'll show you Hill Climb 2, which is a fun little racing game that I play. This is one that looks pretty phenomenal with this full screen. And fortunately, it's one where that notch doesn't come into play with actual interaction with the application. So really, certain apps take full advantage of it. Some a little better than most, but I certainly like that. So that's my initial take on the iPhone 10. I know I didn't go into too much depth with the phone itself. We didn't talk about the new cameras, especially the front portrait mode, which is pretty great, I have to say. It's not as clean as you would get with the rear facing, and that's probably a side effect of it being very software driven or software heavy, but certainly usable for what people typically use selfies for, which are Instagram, Facebook, etc. And I do plan on putting together some reviews down the road. We'll look more in depth at the camera, do some comparisons between it and the 6S and the 7. We'll look at animojis, that kind of thing. So hopefully this was helpful. If there's anything that you would like to see, please feel free to comment. And if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching and stay tuned. Thank you.